Welcome back to the Paradigm Project.
We did eat Vegemite toast for breakfast the whole lunch.
I was talking to my mom about comedians.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Paradigm Project. We're happy to have you here. For today's episode, we're going to be interviewing some of the new mentors at Paradigm. They'll tell you a little bit about themselves and give a little bit of advice for scholars. Hope you enjoy.
Hello, we are here with Mr. Dalton today. I just have a few questions for you. Want to get to know you, You did teach here before, right?
Yeah, I taught here 2 years ago. I taught ninth grade geography, ninth grade seminar, and I also taught a Chinese civilizations class for prep school.
Cool. How does it feel to be back?
It's very exciting. I fell in love with the school 2 years ago. I really like the philosophy and the way that we focus our attentions on scholars and helping them grow as individuals. So it's really great to be back.
That's awesome. So I have a question for you. What is your favorite line from the Paradigm Declaration, if you have one? Like, how does it pertain to you, your teaching style, or just what's your favorite line?
I think it's the final one. I accept my shared responsibility to create a free society and a better world. Still memorizing it. But I think that's probably my favorite, is that final line. And it's because it accepts that we do have responsibility, which it can feel like a burden at times, but it also means that we do have capacity to create change.
Totally.
So I really think that people forget about that responsibility because it is a burden at times, but they also give away a lot of their power and their influence that they would have normally by accepting that responsibility. And also just creating a better world. I teach history. I was a history major. I'm always looking to make the future better as opposed to going backwards.
What are some hobbies that you have?
One that I always forget to mention, so I'll mention it first, is I'm a huge Utah Jazz fan.
Heck yeah.
Love the Utah Jazz. I was just reading an article about LeBron James, and I'm really excited to hopefully see him not win another championship. I'd like to see a championship come to Utah, so I'm hopeful. Yeah, that's first. That usually takes up a lot of my attention during basketball season. Other than that, though, during the summer, I love to go camping, love to go kayaking. Those are probably the two things that I love to do recreationally the most. And then hobby, I really love computer science. And it's mostly the hardware aspect of things. I'm not like big into coding or anything like that. So I like to build computers and learn about like new hardware that's available for them and playing video games with my nice computer that I have.
Cool.
What graphics card do you have? That's what I said.
I have a 1080.
Okay.
Yes. And I have an i9. A brand new i9. Yeah.
What high school did you graduate from or go to? And what brought you back to teaching in high school? Like, what brings you here?
Yeah. So I graduated from Taylorsville High in Taylorsville, Utah. Before I went there, I had some good history teachers, one in particular who I actually still talk to. And I haven't told him that I got a new teaching job, so he'll be excited to hear about that when I do tell him. But when I got to Taylorsville High, I started taking AP history classes and had some really great teachers, fell in love with history there, really loved their teaching style and just who they were as people. I took a year break between high school and college because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And even when I went back to college, I still had no idea what I wanted to do. I took economics classes, I took business classes, I took science classes, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And the history classes that I took were still my favorite, just like they were in high school. So I decided to kind of continue pursuing that. And teaching had always kind of been an interesting career to me that I had considered. I thought I might be good at. So yeah, I just kind of took those two things and ran with it. And the more I took history classes, the more I loved it. And I started to find my passion that way.
Yeah. It's so awesome when you can build relationships with your teachers and really like the scholar mentor sort of way, like they're mentors, they're not teachers.
Yeah.
And so you're able to be friends with them and you learn so much more from that.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was looking for jobs, my junior high history teacher that I'm still in contact with, he was always emailing me about open positions and new opportunities. He's always been there trying to help me out, which I appreciate. Yeah. It's been a lifelong thing so far.
That's so awesome.
Is there any like discussion topic you'd like to talk about? Like something from history,
anything like that?
So my focus in college, and if I ever continue, which I probably will at some point, I'll probably continue my history education, and I will focus most likely on China. That's my really big interest, is Chinese history. Really interested in the last 200 years of Chinese history. It's really important for the world, I think. China in our modern day is quickly becoming, along with the United States, one of the most powerful and influential around the world. And oftentimes when there's one really powerful country like the United States that starts to be approached in power by another, like China or like the Soviet Union in the past, that's when conflict between the two can start to arise. And so I'd really like to study and contribute to an understanding between the United States and China, where we can hopefully avoid as much conflict and really start to understand each other, because China is becoming very influential and very powerful. And so I'd like to hopefully help communication and just understanding between the two countries.
Yeah. One thing I think is super cool, just like the differences between them, like just the philosophies that come from the Eastern way of thinking versus like the Western.
Yeah.
I think it was Mr. Mueller. He was saying the difference between them. Just Western is like a straight line sort of way of thinking. And then Eastern is like a circle. So everything wraps down together, like the Tao. Have you ever read the Tao?
Parts of it, yeah.
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 So like it just, everything flows, it's continuous flow. And I think it's really cool to just understand the differences between the two countries.
Yeah.
So I like that.
And a lot of ideas have changed in Asia in the last 200 years because of Western influence, but they are still very much linked with that past. That past is still very strong with them. And in many ways, they're actually trying to go back to those traditional Eastern ways. Where they feel like Western ideas have helped them in certain ways, but may have also created problems in their society that they don't really enjoy, or they've kind of been able to rediscover their philosophy in a new lens now that they have different ideas to look at too.
Yeah.
And same with the West. Like, we're now getting more exposure in schools about Eastern philosophy and Eastern ways of thinking, which I think is really great too.
Yeah, and just like in between the two of them, I think it goes well with the line that you chose. I accept my shared responsibility to create a free society and a better world. That's what we're trying to do. No matter where you live, you're just trying to accept your shared responsibilities. You accept that other people have ideas, other different ideas than you. And you take that and you try to create a better world with it.
And usually it's not one idea that's going to accomplish that. It's usually a mixture of ideas and people working really hard to find out what's best, not just this is my stance and therefore that's what's best. It's a lot about communication, give and take, and understanding, I think.
Totally. And last question, any advice for scholars listening?
I guess some of my advice that I was given was always to look for importance, look for significance or truth in anything that you encounter. And it can be hard sometimes, especially when you're in high school or you're in prep school, junior high age. It can be really hard to search for that significance and that meaning. But the things that we enjoy doing, or the things that we're interested in, it has significance to you, and it usually has a wider significance as well. So there's always things that might seem unnecessary or extra, but if it's important to you, then that means it has significance. So always be looking for that significance and understand why you appreciate it, I guess is some of the best advice I could give.
Sweet.
Thank you guys
so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Dude. All right. So here we are with Ms. Gibbons. And
Also go by Miss Witt.
Miss Witt. That's
Yes.
pretty cool. So we'll just ask you some questions. So what's your favorite book from like the Paradigm curriculum or book challenge? So you can pick any book from there. Like, what do you like? What have you read?
Sure thing. Okay, so I went to school, university as an English major. And the problem with asking English major what their favorite book is that they have read so many and remembered so little.
Yeah.
And when someone asks you if you've read a book, the answer is probably yes, but let me go check the Wikipedia for it.
Yeah.
But one book that I definitely love, I don't reread books a lot, but one book that I do find myself returning to is called Alas, Babylon.
Really? What's that about?
So I don't think it's on the Paradigm, like Great Books Challenge.
Right, yeah.
But it is mentioned in Thomas Jefferson Education, the book.
Okay.
So that's my
Right,
tie-in.
yeah.
That's my
There you go,
tie-in
there
for
you
that. So Alas, Babylon takes place in about the 1950s. And the main character is named Randy, and he lives in Florida.
Nice.
And he's not quite a Florida man, but he is a man that lives in Florida.
Right, yes.
He comes from a military family. He's not in the military currently, but his brother is, and he works at a very important nearby Air Force base.
Yeah.
The book starts when he gets a telegram from his brother who's high up in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And it says, "Alas, Babylon," which is a code that they had from when they were kids, which means something great and terrible is about to happen. And as adults, it's the code for nuclear war is happening.
Okay.
Get ready now.
Right.
So the book is about his brother's family flies out. His brother has to stay at the base to man the operation. And the bombs fall.
Oh, gosh.
America is obliterated.
Right.
And now Randy in his little Florida community is cut off from the rest of the world. And the book is him surviving with his friends and family, trying to do their best to keep living. And it's a very fun book. You get to the end of it, you really wish that you had better food storage
Right, yeah.
as they're like foraging for salt through old journals and
goodness.
things like that. And who has an orchard and who has a
Right.
pig and let's keep them
Goodness.
alive.
Right.
But very fun book. That's a book that I have read over and over again.
That is awesome.
That would be my favorite.
I want to go read that now.
It's a
That
good
sounds
one.
like-
It's
I
a
don't
good
know,
one. And
that's-
it's not even long. It's like
Right.
not as short, but it's not like one of the big chunky books.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
I don't read stuff like that very often.
Right. Well, there's so many books now.
Right, yeah.
And there's so much access to books. It's
Yeah.
like, what book should I read? Well, here's one of 50,000.
Right, yeah.
Take your pick.
Sometimes I get overwhelmed with like how many books there are, so I'm like, I won't read.
Right. Yeah. That's why getting book recommendations is so important.
Yes,
Like actually passing it along. And also knowing what friends you trust recommendations from.
Do you have a story about that?
Oh gosh, well, just English major again. Like there's so many books
Right.
coming at you from every
Yes.
direction. But every now and then you'll have a friend where they're like, "Oh, I love this book, changed my life. I swear by it." And then you start reading it. You're like, we have very different modes of thought.
Right.
I am sure you love this book. I love that for you. I'm going to stick with my
Yes,
own books and
yes.
literary pursuits.
I'm trying to think. I felt that way with Lord of the Flies.
Oh my gosh. When you get into the deep classics,
Right.
that's where it's really dependent on you as a person.
Yes.
Kind of more like sugary, like pop literature.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, we all like this, but then you get into like, man, I love Beowulf, and it's like,
Yeah.
I'm sure you do.
Right, yeah.
I'm glad you love Beowulf, my friend.
So, next question. What are your hobbies? What are things you like to do other than Paradigm? You know?
Sure thing. So I am a very creative person. I like to create things, whether that is art or writing. I do a lot of writing, and I am also an illustrator. So I'm an author, an illustrator. I do several kinds of art.
Right.
So I do like digital art. So I use computer programs like Photoshop to illustrate. And I also do more hands-on art. I do something called soft sculpture. So
Interesting.
yes, so any of my students, I brought them in on the first day, a couple of my soft sculptures. Instead of just using clay or like metal or
Right.
things that people used to make sculptures, those would be hard sculptures.
Okay.
I make things out of clay and wire, but they're creatures. And so
Interesting.
I have like fur on them. So it ends up
Oh,
looking
okay,
like
right,
a little
yeah.
creature, and I use wire so that like you can move the limbs and the
Right,
tail and the
yeah.
neck. And so soft
Interesting.
sculpture is a lot of fun. So I end up having these little like handheld creatures that I just have in my apartment.
Yeah.
I like them a lot.
That's awesome.
It's
Yeah.
a pretty wacky thing. Like, and then if you see them for the first time, you're like, oh, that's a thing.
Right.
That's a thing that somebody made. But I've really loved them.
Yeah. I feel like that's like when I get on Etsy.
Yes.
I don't get on Etsy very often, but
But when I do,
right. I see stuff like that and I'm questioning certain things. But
there's definitely different styles
Right,
within the art where you're like,
yes.
oh, that's cute. I would not have that in my house. Okay, that one's fine.
right, yes.
Very
totally.
much to taste.
It's crazy how art is.
Like
but,
there's so many degrees within art. There's
Right.
so much variation. You say art,
yeah.
and it can mean like literally anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm into music. That's my kind of thing. And even in the art of music, there's jazz and then classical and And then inside of that, there's more. There's like romantic classical, there's Baroque classical, or, you know, blues and stuff like that. And it's that applies to like other things too, like, I don't know, painting. I don't really know anything about art, but I'm sure there's
No,
more
it's
than just
true.
like
You can always
painting.
keep going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it
like
just-
with art
yeah.
and like music, you can keep specializing and keep
Yeah.
specializing and keep specializing. So I'm in a Discord with other soft sculpture artists.
yeah.
And you're like, I guess there's more than one of us out there. But we were looking up like fake fur prices. And we kept finding people on Etsy sold patches of cutout fur for gnome beards. People would make little gnome sculptures that they paint, and we're like, that is the weirdest, most specialized, most niche thing. And then we're all like, guys, we're in a Discord for like creating creatures out of soft sculpture. We should not throw the first stone.
Right.
But yeah,
That
like
is
no
so
matter
crazy.
where you go in creativity, there will always be more than one person doing that.
And there's something different, like always. Like, and there's constantly being new things created. And that's probably my favorite thing about art, is that you find something you like, and then you keep going down that rabbit hole until you like it more, and then you like it even more, and then you end up at gnome sculptures.
Right?
So
Yeah, no
yeah,
kidding.
it's just crazy.
My question is always just, once you get like a dozen gnomes, what do you do with a dozen gnomes? But I'm sure they would have the answer if we asked
Right,
them.
yeah. Maybe each one has like a specific.
They have like a specific
Power, or,
room
like-
of the house that they guard.
It's like a Elf on the Shelf, but with gnomes.
They move every morning. That would be terrifying.
You have to find the gnomes in each room.
Nice. Love
That'd be
that.
something. What advice would you have for our scholars, either taking your class or just in life or just anything?
So my go-to thing, so I've always had ADHD.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
trouble with like keeping track of them,
Right,
keeping things
yes.
organized. So for me at least, organization has always been a super, super important thing for me.
Right.
Because if I don't organize things, I will die.
Yes.
So it's like a survival mechanism,
Right,
not even
yeah.
a coping
Yeah.
mechanism. I need this to continue living. So for me, just knowing the expectations, and if I can tell what's going to be asked of me in advance, like when due
Right,
dates are, what
right.
projects are going to be like, I can ask good questions in advance so
Yes.
that I am more prepared instead of
Right.
just arriving at the day
Yes.
of, and then I'm like, well, I don't know anything.
Yeah, right.
So a couple of months in advance, you can say, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Then you can ask those questions,
Right.
you know what you need. So yeah, just finding ways that work for you to keep yourself feeling like you're on top of it.
Right.
Because nobody likes to feel like they're drowning.
Yes.
So finding ways for you to feel in control and in charge and I guess safe so you don't feel like you're about to die.
Yes.
So yeah, so I think organization, just finding a way that works for you, because some people are going to use a planner, some people are going to use just a folder with a
Yeah.
bunch of different pages in
Right.
it. But just whatever works for you, finding it, honing it, and sticking with it.
Right. Focusing on what you said a little bit ago, like ask questions before the due date. Whenever somebody like tells me to do something or like a project or something like that, I'm like, I can do it. Like, I'm good. I don't need it. And then I like procrastinate it because I feel so confident in myself that I can do this
Right.
one thing. And then I start actually doing it like 2 days before, and I'm like, maybe I couldn't do it, you know?
Right?
And
No, they've
then I
done
start- yeah.
studies about that where people are always going to have a better guess than reality.
Right,
Like
yeah.
if you ask someone, like they've done studies where they ask students, how long do you think it will take you to do this assignment?
Yeah.
And they always give like, oh, like in their minds are like, in a best case
Right,
scenario,
yeah.
it will take me 2 days.
Yeah.
And that will never happen because you're thinking best case scenario. If you think worst case scenario, if everything goes wrong,
Right.
it would take me 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you actually give yourself 2 weeks and then you'll finish within your time
Right.
constraint. But if you have to learn how to think negatively
Yeah.
when you're planning. You
I
have to
think that's-
learn how to pick the negative one,
Yeah.
like if everything goes wrong, and then you'll always make your
That's
deadlines.
so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, it's like the complete opposite of what everyone's always saying, you know? Think positively.
Right?
You know?
Yeah. When planning,
Right.
think negatively.
Yes.
Push yourself to be like, if everything went wrong, how much time would I actually need?
Yes. I think there's also a level of pride.
I surely can
Right,
finish within
yes.
2 days.
It's like, maybe not everybody else could do it, but
But
I can.
I'm
different.
special.
I'm not like the other girls. I'm different. But yeah,
Exactly.
so.
But yeah, so
Awesome.
be organized, plan negatively. That would be my advice.
All right.
This has been good. It's been fun talking to you.
Yeah, it's been fun to talk to you, get to know you a little bit more. So thank you. Thank you for being on. Being in this interview. It's been super fun.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So here we are with Mr. Gann. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So what is your favorite book from Paradigm Collections?
Well, that's tricky because I'm a brand new teacher here, so I don't know what you would define as the Paradigm curriculum. But for instance, just looking at the books that Miss Bowie painted down there for the Paradigm Challenge or whatever.
Right.
Is Lord of the Rings in there somewhere, or The Hobbit or something? I don't know.
Lord of the Flies.
I know there's Lord of the Flies. Okay, let's see.
The Hobbit.
Yeah, The Hobbit's in there?
Yeah.
Well, J.R.R. Tolkien's definitely one of my favorite authors, and sometimes fantasy or fiction gets kind of a stigma. It's like, oh, it's just entertainment.
Right,
it's
yeah.
just fun. It's light, whatever.
Yeah, totally.
But I believe that we can actually learn a lot from fiction, from fantasy, whether that's in the form of literature or movies, even video games.
Right.
And that's because anything that inspires you, like if you've ever been to a really intense movie that took you on an emotional roller coaster, and like you were there with the protagonists at those crushing moments of defeat, or like
Feel it in your heart.
Neville Longbottom when
Right,
Harry Potter's dead, and it's like Voldemort's like, okay, join me, and he's like,
Right.
never, and he like stands up, so the courage and bravery. So ultimately all these forms of media are different ways of storytelling, and the whole philosophy we have here at Paradigm is about having experiences with truth,
Right.
that we learn and grow as we experience truth. And that happens through fiction and nonfiction. So I consider myself a student of anything that's, even whether it's fiction or not, if there's something in it that's inspiring, that speaks to me, that makes me just like whether it's Star Wars or The Hobbit or, Brandon Sanderson, it's it's teaching me about what it means to be human. Yeah. It's teaching me about what is it that I want, that what makes me happy, how can I relate to other people. And so there's these overarching themes, and even what's his name, Carl Jung, famous philosopher. He talked about these, and there's like the hero's journey and stuff. And so I hold that there is eternal truth, and that sometimes these stories that we tell over and over that become sometimes myths and mythologies, and they're telling us what it means to be human, the meaning of life, the meaning of love and passion, and to care and to have something beyond ourselves. Yeah. And so I hold, this might sound like a stretch, but I hold that we live in the greatest possible universe of any possible universe. Really? That the reality we live in, I believe in a creator. Yeah. And if there is a creator, if there's anything out there that's got a one-up on our reality, why would it not be our reality? So I hold that we live in the greatest possible reality that could exist.
Out there. So Marvel Universe.
Yes.
If you had any other realities.
Exactly.
We're in the greatest.
We're in the most exciting, awesome, incredible reality that you could exist in. And so then anything that you can imagine then becomes a study.
Right, yeah.
Because it's like, oh, if this was cool, then anything that's cool or exciting or awesome that you can find in fantasy, it then becomes, well, where do I find that in the real world? Right, yeah. So I hold that it exists. Right. This is kind of weird conversation for an earth science teacher, right? Yeah. Which, by the way, I teach earth science this year. But yeah, that's just part of my philosophy. So anyway, a lot more you could talk about. But as far as I don't know. I've never met a book I didn't like except once.
Right.
And that was a book called Lake Wobegon Days. I highly don't recommend it.
How did you like it?
Oh, it was just, there was no plot.
Right.
I picked it up on the shelf of my English teacher in high school. I was like, oh, let's see about this book. I started reading. There was just random stories that had no connection and really no point. They weren't like uplifting or anything. They were just like kind of weird stories. And I kept waiting for some plot to develop or some thread to connect them, and there never was. And I finally just like, forget it. I'm not, there's no point.
That's interesting.
But pretty much every other book I've read, you know, yeah, I've read about half the books on the Paradigm Challenge, and yeah, they've been pretty influential. I think, like, for instance, Fahrenheit 451 was on there.
That's a good book.
Pretty relevant to today, where it's like, honestly, there's a lot of control and censorship.
Right.
People get upset sometimes. Like, we try to encourage ourselves to experience other viewpoints and expose ourselves, but, you know, people become uncomfortable when you step outside of the world of the perfectly curated world of this is how it is and this is what I believe. And, you know, so it's great that we have the philosophy of teaching and learning how to think and not what to think. You have like Orwell, I think I don't know if Orwell's on there, but he wrote like the farm or whatever, something about Animal Farm. He also wrote 1984. I don't know if that's on there. Pretty impactful books and relevant to today. I don't know. I'd have to look at the list to actually say which. These are the ones I remember and how they influence me. Anyway.
Something I thought was interesting that you said about Fahrenheit 451 was like the censorship and how you were relating it to nowadays where people get uncomfortable about it. I feel like we're putting ourselves into, like, we're censoring ourselves, but we're not necessarily meaning to, but also like social media algorithms. So like things we're liking and things we are interacting with, social media throws that in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not necessarily consciously censoring the content we participate in, but like second-handedly, it is what ends up happening as a product of those algorithms.
Yeah, basically, if you choose to always surround yourself with ideas that agree, you're basically, you're filtering and narrowing your experience. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to the second question. What are activities, hobbies, just really anything that you enjoy doing, and like why do you enjoy doing those things?
I like a lot of things.
That's fair.
Which is great. I think this is a very actually important question, and it's one that I think we should all think about more. What do you like doing, or what do you like, or what do you want?
Right.
I usually try to start my classes off asking people what they want. Why are they here?
Right.
There's a saying that I've heard that says the two most important days in your life are, one, the day you're born, and two, the day you figure out why.
Right. Yeah.
And so being passionate and excited and living life, you know, we only get to live once. This life once. Yeah. And like, I don't want to get to the end and be like, well, gosh, I never really like tried, you know? Yeah. Like, I wonder what could have happened if I had really put myself into it, right?
Like living with regrets.
And
being stuck with those regrets.
Yeah. And so much of our lives are spent doing the things that other people tell us, this is what should be important. This is what you should do. This is important. Do this. And like, when we really get down to it, it's like, what is David Daniel Gann about? What is it that I want? And so I kind of took it in my own direction, but like, I mean, I love learning. I know that's kind of cliche and broad, but there's different levels of learning, like learning about random facts, like memorizing phone numbers.
Yeah, right.
Like that is, I guess that's information, but it's not very, I wouldn't say it's the most meaningful.
Right.
Versus like the most meaningful and then everything in between, right?
Yeah.
I guess this goes back to kind of the question about books and media, but like each individual person is practically their own universe in a way. Like they're unbelievably complex. So one of the things that fascinates me the most is people.
Mm-hmm.
People and the universe. I mean, my degree is in physics, so I love, learning about the universe, everything from astronomy and giant cosmology and galaxies that are billions of light years away to Mars and exploration.
Totally.
All that stuff is fascinating. I don't know. I'm just really curious. And sometimes you just look up into the night sky and you're like, holy crap.
Yeah. Right.
Like the fact, what percentage of the matter in the universe is, I'm going to have to calculate this sometime, but is alive,
right?
And what percentage of life has a brain that can be conscious and can even ask the question, who am I?
Right,
Or I think, therefore I am.
Yeah, totally.
It's awesome, as in fills you with awe. So I love to learn about things. And then I also believe in another aspect of learning, that knowledge, in a sense, is power.
Right.
So, for instance, the laws of physics, they don't stop just because you don't understand them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more you understand them, you're able to use them to your end, to your advantage, rather than have them use you.
Yeah.
Right? So I do believe that then there's levels of knowledge, and I believe that the highest level of knowledge is moral. I don't know if that makes sense, but knowledge of laws, eternal laws of truth.
Right.
And so that's going to be the most empowering. And it might sound I don't know, greedy or something, but I want to be powerful.
Yeah.
I want to be powerful. And so learning the things that will empower me to have an impact. If I only get to live for a short 80 years, I want to have the most impact that I can in that amount of time. And so the knowledge that I need in order to achieve that is fascinating to me. So knowledge about relationships, knowledge about, the things we, I guess, teach or aspire to here at Paradigm, which is being leaders, having an impact, so that kind of knowledge, the knowledge of how to achieve what you want to achieve. Right. To me, that's more important. And then I mean, it's important to have to be healthy, and part of that is I'd say things that are physical activities. I mean, I played soccer growing up, in high school. I like soccer, I like basketball. I think dancing's pretty fun. I like salsa dancing. I don't get to do it that often. Right. Music, I love music. I actually have a Twitch channel that I play cello and piano on. And I'm not claiming to be amazing at it. It's just a journey. Right. It's an adventure, and I want to share that with people. And it's a way that I can have a positive influence and grow myself as a person, you know. I love music. In fact, that's one of the things on my to-do list this weekend is to record some stuff. I just got my audio interface. Right. So anyway, all these things, I guess I have diverse and many interests. I'm a nerd. I was just researching some stuff from computer science. I watched a couple days ago. I watched Imitation Game about Alan Turing. Right. And the guy is a genius. And the decision problem. I mean, I like a book called Gödel, Escher, Bach that talks about. I mean, I can nerd out all day with so anyway, but at the end of the day, I think people seeking truth and not in a vacuum, but with other people. I care about people. Right. And so whoever random person you are that's nerdy enough to listen to the school podcast, it might sound weird, but I care about you too. So I hope you're having a good day and a fantastic life. Anyway.
That's awesome. Great. I guess that almost perfectly leads into the next question, which is any advice for our scholars and our listeners.
So, awesome. Yeah. I love it. So whoever's listening, if I was listening and I was sitting there listening, gosh, okay, this gets back down to what I said about the day you're born is important, and then the day you find out why, right? Everything we do, there's levels of reasons. And so for me, one of the most important questions you can ask yourself is why? Why are you going to school? If the only reason you give is, because I have to, or my parents are going to make me, this analogy or this type of situation you'll hit over and over throughout life. We have to live, and to live, we need to eat, and like we need resources. So most of us are like, well, we need money, so I'm gonna work to get money.
Right.
So a lot of people are like, well, I have to go to work. I mean, technically, sure. Like, that's one reason. But if that's the only reason we have for doing anything, life becomes really boring and black and white and awful and miserable.
Right. Yeah.
So rather than doing things because you have to or people tell you to, figure out reasons why you want to.
Yeah.
So, for example, the reason I'm here isn't because I have to. It's because I want to be here. I think that the scholars here at the school that we have are some of the most incredible people I've ever met.
Right.
I do believe that you guys are going to be the people that go out and change the world. So I was talking about if I only have 80 short years to live and impact this planet, one of the best ways I can do that is by trying to have an impact with you guys.
Right.
And so for me, the reason I come to work isn't because I need money to go eat food. It's because I literally want to change the world. And the best way for me to do that is to like help you guys realize how powerful you are.
Yeah.
Like you guys legit can, like you have so much ability to change this world. If I can just like, again, something else we say at Paradigm is like, education isn't filling a bucket, it's lighting a fire. You guys are fires that can like burn so bright, and like if I can just impact you in the smallest way, you're going to go on and impact people again and again and again, and it will create an unending infinite ripple effect that will, you know, we're here today because of the people before us.
Right.
And it might sound weird, but literally going back thousands of years, even the people who no one remembers through history, but because they lived and died and worked and whatever, it brought us to where we are today.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for those people. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent, but my advice is ask yourself, who are you? What is it you want? What are you about? And then look at all the things in your life. And if they don't relate directly to your primary motives, your primary reasons for being, then why are you doing it? Then why are they there? Just because someone said you should? Well, forget about it. If ideally, in my ideal, we would each be like so focused on something we're so, or not just one thing to the exclusion of others. Sometimes it's like a broad mix, right?
Right.
But so focused and so passionate that like we cannot be stopped. It's like, oh, I can't trouble with that stuff.
Yeah.
It's not part of the prime directive.
Yeah.
You know, it's not part of the
Right.
like thing that I'm trying to do. And that's why one of my heroes is Elon Musk. I might not agree with all of his philosophy,
Right.
but man, the dude is consistent.
Yeah.
He measures his life in how short of time do we have until we have a self-sustaining civilization on Mars.
Right.
And everything he does is perfectly like calculated to shorten that amount of time.
Yeah.
And he is so driven. He can't be bugged with like this or that or that.
Yeah.
Everything. He's like, well, I'm trying to get billions and billions of dollars to help further that. You know,
Yeah.
he's like so driven and so passionate and so focused. The man has so much integrity to what he believes in. And so, yeah, that would be like the single point of advice I would give you, my friend, is not what anyone else is telling you why you're here, not what anyone else is telling you what you should be or do or know or seek, but get in tune with yourself. Ask yourself, what is it that you want more than anything else? What is it you're here to create or do? What is it that you came to this planet with inside of your heart, inside of your soul? And like, do not settle. Pursue that with a vengeance, with a passion that you cannot be stopped. And just watch what will happen. Watch your life transform. Watch Awake, you know, throw up Awake as we pursue that with tenacity and determination, so that when we do leave this planet, you know, there will be no question that we lived. There will be no question that you are here. and that you will, in the sports analogy, going back to like soccer, we had this saying like leave it all on the field.
Yeah.
And that's like give it all. Don't leave any gas in the tank so that you don't have that regret. And then when we die, as we all will, we'll have no regret that I gave everything that I had. And the world is different for being there. Anyway, sorry, I get a little emotional and passionate.
That is
but
beautiful. That is beautiful.
thanks.
I am so grateful for everything you said. That is so, like, I got goosebumps. Like, seriously, like,
Cool.
That was amazing.
Well, I also want you guys to know that, like, whatever mentor I am in whatever respect, whether it's earth science or if you're listening to this in a year and I'm like something different, I don't care. Like, primarily, I care about you and I'll help you and I'll do anything I can to help you. And that's why I try to live my life in consistency with the principles that I espouse. Like, no hypocrisy cuts out the power. But when we're living consistent to our principles and it's not just talking a talk, we're walking the walk, there's power in that. And so I guess that would be the other thing. I don't care what you believe, I care how you believe it. So I'd ask each of us, we can each do better in being consistent to the things that we believe. And I'd say there's power in that as well. So thanks.
I want to say amen. Like,
Amen.
that's
It
everything.
just
That's
means-
amazing. Thank
cool.
you so much.
Okay, so first of all, just to start off, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Mrs. Colton and I teach Chinese and Prep PE here. So Chinese students, they will call me Gao 老师, because, you know, that's Chinese, right? And I teach here on A Day and I love coming here to see the students and interact with them and sometimes teach about the Chinese ability because they only have me for a month, so it's not fluent yet, but they're getting there.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. What are some things that you like to do in your spare time?
Okay, so I like to go outdoor. I like traveling around the world, but with COVID, we couldn't really do it this time. So
Right.
I go like to anywhere has river or mountains. I like to go do things with my kids, you know, hiking, playing with waters, even splash pad. That's what we do now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That sounds like an absolute blast. So I want to go to a splash pad. So that's a little bit about yourself. Tell us, going a little bit more into the liberal arts, what's your favorite book?
Okay, so my favorite book. So this is a book that I really like. It's called 半农半X. So it's, of course it's in Chinese, right? So the meaning is like half farming and then half is like something that is in your interest, like your hobby. So the whole book's idea is the farming part is things that you can make money from. So it's like you live your life half like doing what can make money, support your life, like farming, the farmers farm so that they can support their life. Some other people work and, you know, their job support their life. And then the other half is like the X is where your interests are. And so like,
Right.
so this is the book that I love to read. And then I carry on, have a lot of different series about, there are people like work and then do services to help other people. So that the series of the book that I really enjoy reading. Yeah.
So can you give us a little bit of advice that you have for any paradigm scholars?
I just would say make as many friends as you can while you're in school because I treasure my high school friendship and my best friend is still the friend that I met from high school. The friendship from high school is hard to compare.
Right. I definitely agree. I think connection is one of the biggest things, especially for teenagers these days. And then to wrap up, this is the question that I love to ask every person, is what is your favorite pair of socks?
Okay, socks. I actually don't really like to wear socks, but So I moved to Utah 5 years ago, where I'm from. We never snow, so it was never cold, right?
yeah.
And so during Christmas, my friend gave me a pair of pink socks, and I hate pink, okay? But then one time, like it snowed so bad, it's so cold, and then I really pull out the pink socks to wear. And so it's like a hate and love thing because
Right.
I really hate pink, but then that is the only pair of socks that is like really warm, kind of like, you know, fuzzy
Right.
kind. And I need to wear it because it was too cold.
That is fantastic. I love that so much. Oh my goodness. And I love fuzzy socks. They're so good, especially in Utah winters. My goodness. Well, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. Thanks so much for answering these questions. And it has been an absolute delight to talk to you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right, so here we have Mr. Burt with us to interview. So let's start out. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, my name is Mr. Burt. I'm the one of the music mentors. I'm the band and orchestra mentor here at Paradigm. Just brand new.
Awesome. What kind of things do you like to do in your spare time?
In my spare time, I read. I like to go on hikes as well. I like to ride my bicycle.
I love
Quite a
that.
bit.
I love that.
And get with friends and talk. Oh, I'm in a band.
Awesome.
Like a soul R&B band.
That's fantastic. That sounds like a blast. I want to be part of one of those.
Yeah, well, you should.
I should. Let's make it happen. Can you tell me a little bit about some of your education, kind of what brought you to Paradigm?
Yeah, sure. I have a degree in trombone performance, which, yes, that's a degree you can have. It's a lot of fun. I did that at Brigham Young University in Provo. Originally, I'm from Idaho. Came down for that.
Nice.
Got a degree in instrumental conducting. So the guy that stands up with a stick, yells at people, that's me. So...
Good stuff.
Yeah, you know. And so I got the bachelor's in trombone, a master's degree in conducting. That took a little while, and I took a little extra time, about a year and a half extra. And then I started looking for jobs. I was a substitute teacher around Utah Valley for 4 months-ish.
Nice.
Had the summer doing gigs and things with my band.
We are so happy to have you here. It's seriously, I know that I've been in your classes and they've been fantastic, and I've heard so many great things around the school, so we're so happy to have you here.
It's nice of you, thanks.
So you know about the Paradigm Challenge, which with all of the books, we would like to know, what is the book you're most excited for?
That is a really good question.
There's so many great options.
Yeah. I honestly need a refresher on some of these books. I've been thinking a lot about curriculum. The ones I'm reading right now, I'm reading Anatomy of Peace. And also,
that's such a good book. That's one of my favorites.
I'm reading TJ Ed. I mean, like,
oh my gosh, that is,
it's very foundational to Paradigm.
Right,
and it's new to me, so that's been an awesome one to read.
For sure.
I went to public school. I, no homeschool, no charter school experience.
Right.
This is all very new to me. And, my public school experience was actually pretty good. I had a lot of fun in band, my school didn't have an orchestra, actually, but we did band. I did choir, I did jazz band. And then I had some excellent teachers who were, like, English government. So they taught me at a young age to love those things, Right. But I also, it's just my family. I mean, my family did a lot of homeschooling. Right. Even though I was not homeschooled. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so I feel like I didn't have the experience that a lot of the scholars here have, but I was taught to, coming back to the book, TJ Ed. Right. I love pursuing my own education. That was just a passion of mine all my life. And when I got to college, even though I had already chosen a major relatively early because I had it chosen and I stuck with it, I was always thinking, maybe I want to change to this, maybe I want to change to that, because I it's kind of me. I can't stop wanting to learn about everything. So I just got a job offer here, which was amazing. But as I learned about it, I really became passionate about the ideas that were being explained to me, that scholars here have. They're encouraged and expected to lead their own education. And that fits with me. I vibe with that. So. Right. So I've loved the book, awesome. and it helps me fit in, I think, to Paradigm.
That's fantastic. That's definitely one of my favorite books. I remember reading it in ninth grade, I think, was the first time that I went through, and I had some discussions with my seminar class and stuff, and it was just, it opened my eyes to kind of the world of education and what I really wanted from it. So I love that you can really see that and see how it connects to Paradigm and stuff.
I should also say,
it's so good.
Outside, there's like the two sides of the mural on the wall, right? We've got the Paradigm classics and then the great works. And of course, those pictures are only a few.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to getting into the great works as well, outside of the Paradigm stuff. And one of the ones, I've actually owned this book forever, a translation of Don Quixote.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's one I'm going to get to this year sometime.
Oh,
I guess
fantastic.
is my answer to that.
It is
very excited.
A book to read, yes.
It's like the great novel that started it all, in a way. So I'm just excited about the characters and seeing how that.
That's right.
So anyway.
Yeah. That's a great book. I would like to ask, do you have any advice for scholars at Paradigm? I know that you're still new to it and you're still learning, so not necessarily Paradigm specifically advice, but just life advice, school advice.
Yes. I mean, again, one of the things I love so much about this school is that the mentors are also, it's understood by the scholars that we are also scholars, right? We are also pursuing the same path.
Right.
We might be a few steps further along just because of our age and experience, but that doesn't mean we might not have some of the same questions as you do, especially these great questions. And we'll always have those questions. They're not, we don't usually solve them.
Right.
If anyone does, let me know. But as far as any words of advice, I would just say, love it here, invest, take part in those conversations. When you get a reading, do it, obviously.
Amen.
Really dig. It's good to think deeply.
Amen.
It's something that it makes your life richer. There's a movie, Dead Poet Society. Robin Williams is in it. It was one of his great movies, and it's a serious role. Not that he's not funny, but it's a serious role. He teaches at like a private prep school that is like well-known, has been. It's like an all-boys school at that time, and he's hired as the English teacher, which most of these kids' families want them to go into medicine or into law or into something that pays really well. Makes sense. It's good to have a good job. But he's explaining why he cares that they care about English. And he says those professions are wonderful. It's very important to provide for your life. In fact, if that's your passion too, you can absolutely have a passion for medicine. You can have a passion for all these things. But why poetry? I mean, why study poetry? It's not going to pay your bills, most likely. That's why you have a job. It's so you can live, right? This is life. And this is my point, I guess. Invest in your readings, invest in your studies. If you're in my classes, invest in your practicing, in your listening. Get outside of your comfort zone and explore, because that's what we live for. It's part of the wonderful part of life. Yeah, sorry, that was a kind of beat around the bush, but that would be what I would say. That's
awesome. Thanks so much. For sure. And I mean, that's just something that I feel like we really emulate at Paradigm, is trying to be in what you're doing and be focused and be willing to put in the effort, willing to put in the work, willing to think about it, and really invest yourself into your education. So thank you so much. That is fantastic advice for our scholars. I'd like to ask you one of my favorite questions to ask people, and that would be, what is your favorite pair of socks?
I do have a pair of socks. A favorite one, in fact.
Yeah.
Several ordinary pairs. It's a pretty, some would call nerdy pair of socks.
Yes.
In a way that would fit my current position at Paradigm as a band teacher, specifically band mentor. There was a great brass quintet. There is a great brass quintet. If you don't know what that is, a brass quintet is 2 trumpets, a French horn, trombone, and a tuba or bass trombone. I play the trombone, so. They came to BYU when I was there as a student. It's called the Canadian Brass. They're amazing. They're amazing. And they're pretty well known for a brass quintet, right? They're the best known.
They're so good.
I have a pair of their socks.
I love that.
Not like jersey, like sweaty jersey version. They sold socks at their merch table.
Right, right.
And they button together at the top.
That's adorable.
I think I might have actually worn them here already. But
oh my goodness.
At some point,
That's
if you
delightful.
catch, they're blue and yellow and red. They're just like big, thick stripes. And if you catch me with Canadian brass written in scripty kind of letters on the side of my ankle, then you know I'm having a good day. So,
That is fantastic.
I love fun socks, so it's a good question.
Oh my goodness, that is absolutely delightful. Before we go, is there anything else that you want to tell our scholars about or talk about?
If you don't know me yet, please come to get to know me.
He's awesome, do it.
I'd love to chat with you between classes, or probably before or after school is a better time. Yeah, if you'd like to join and learn music, first of all, open invitation. But anytime in the future, if you're thinking about it in the future, I'd highly recommend it. It's a fun thing to do with your life, and it's a great way to learn about people and the world in a different way. Really excited to be here. Thank you for coming to chat with me.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. It's been absolutely lovely having you.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey guys, we're here today with Mr. Carlson, a new mentor. Well, kind of new. For those who don't know you, Mr. Carlson, what you been up to? What brought you to Paradigm? Who is Mr. Carlson?
Awesome. There's a lot there, but it's a little bit of a story getting to Paradigm because I started out interested in engineering. That's my background, and my undergraduate degree is in mechanical engineering.
Cool.
However, when I was studying that, I got a job teaching after-school robotics for elementary kids. I teach after school at their elementary schools and then summer camps as well. And kind of through that fell in love with education and with learning, and especially in that field of engineering that I'm still interested in. And so graduated pretty recently, and was kind of still deciding what path I wanted to take in life, and was lucky enough to be looking for a job when Mr. Thigerson, I think is who I replaced here as in the robotics department. So kind of took his place, and the last half of last year, I finished up his robotics classes, and now I'm here full-time teaching robotics and engineering and math.
Cool. We actually have an episode with Mrs. Thigerson.
I remember.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool that you can, everybody goes through these phases in school where, they don't know what they like. They don't know what they want, I think it's so cool when you can just find something that you like and and be super passionate about it, and you're learning as well. So I just think that's really cool.
Definitely. I think there's also sometimes it is hard to find that thing you're really passionate about, and so exploring, especially in kind of high school, the age that all the scholars are at here at Paradigm, is very valuable, because if you're not sure, then looking at things that you don't like and other things you're kind of maybe on the fence about, that can help you kind of gauge and decide, and eventually find something you are passionate about.
Another thing I thought was really cool, is that you can just take charge of your education.
Yeah, definitely.
And all the opportunities for you to find something that you like are there. You just have to go for it.
Yeah.
There's so many things I feel like that I'm participating in, and then sometimes I'm like, I don't even know if I have time for that in my schedule, but I'm just going to jump right in and see what happens.
Yeah, test it out, kind of fill the waters.
And I think it's kind of fun to do that, even though it can be kind of stressful at times. But when we're young like this, it's definitely good to take the opportunity to learn new things, try everything, figure out what we want to do with our lives, instead of not jumping into things because we're scared.
Definitely.
Yeah. Like that.
That's definitely a philosophy I kind of try to live by. In high school, I tried to hold quite a few things. I was in lacrosse, and I sang in the choir for a little bit. Definitely not the best singing voice, so that didn't pan out for me, but ended up in STEM, and then later in education, and just exploring things. And I think exactly what you said, not being scared to try new things, and even if you end up failing and falling a couple of times along the way, that's just kind of part of life. You got to accept that.
Totally. So I have a few more questions, but what is one of your hobbies? What do you like to do?
Yeah, I love the outdoors, anything outdoors. And one of my main hobbies currently is rock climbing, outdoors or in a gym.
Mm-hmm.
I got into that a couple years ago, but
Heck yeah.
yeah, I love it. Physical exercise is always good. And what I specifically love about rock climbing is kind of the mental side of it as well as the physical.
Mm-hmm.
One of the disciplines of rock climbing is called bouldering, and the routes you climb, they term problems. And maybe it's my STEM part of my brain that kind of flashes onto that, and that it's a problem to be solved. And like we were talking about earlier, a lot of times you do fall off of that as you're solving this problem, because the solution might not be super clear, or other different people might solve it differently based on their climbing styles. But there's always a way up, and as you fall, you learn what you can and can't do. And I love that about it.
That's so, like, I just thought it was cool how you said climbing styles, because, like, you can look at a sport and be like, oh yeah, that's that sport, and that's all they do in it. And then it's like, no, like, if you really dive deep into pretty much anything, you can find so much more. Definitely, and it could be a lot more detailed than you realize. So I see climbing styles and I'm like, doesn't everybody just climb the same way?
No, I mean, yeah, in the end, the ultimate goal is just get up the wall, right?
Yeah.
But that's one thing I love about rock climbing is it's very apparent that, like, you can be really short and still be an amazing climber. If you're really tall, you just have a completely different climbing style, because you can skip certain holds, do different moves. That's so cool. But you need a lot more technique to just get your body in different positions to reach farther things if you're shorter and you can't reach it.
Yeah, that's cool. And
but yeah, I think the climbing styles is applicable in education as well. Because I mean, everybody has different subjects that they're good at, other things they might struggle with, and that's kind of where their brain can take them. But the end goal is to find your passion, right? And contribute to society. And I think no matter which route you take to that, everybody can still contribute. And just kind of understanding your weaknesses, but building off of those strengths, you can kind of still push forward and contribute and build something positive in the world.
Yeah, and like, it's totally just a mindset too. Like, everybody's good at other things, different things, and they just need to realize it, because you know, sometimes they're not as good at math or something, and then someone else is, and then they're like, oh, I'm not as smart as them. It's like, no, you just have different passions. You have just as much as potential as anyone else, and I think everyone has the same amount of potential, and just in different ways of showing it. I had a friend that was saying, he referred to a certain group of people as like scholarly or something like that. And I was like, hey dude, you're not any less scholarly than anyone else. Like, we're all learning here. We all have different talents. Yeah. Maybe, you know, being scholarly is 100% a mindset, and maybe they're not as good at other things as you know? Definitely. And everybody has the same amount of value, I feel like. Yeah. And everyone has a lot more than they realize too.
Yes, I agree 100%. I think a lot of times we kind of get in that mind space that the comparison between you and other people. And a lot of time we see our failures more potently than we see how others fail. And we kind of focus on what they're better at and what we're worse at, and compare those two. Yeah. Rather than saying, okay, they may be really good at this. And a better mindset is to be like, okay, they're really good at this. How can I be a little bit more like them in this aspect, but still find something that you feel like you are really good at, and still excel in a different area that they might admire in you, but you don't know that.
Yeah, it's really important not to get discouraged over stuff like that. And I think that in the pledge we have a lot of great lines. What is your favorite?
The one that I think stands the most out to me is to honor the nobility in every person. That's one thing that I've really tried to do, and I've learned throughout time, is everybody has things that they have potential inside of them. If we get into that mindset that this is a human being, they struggle in life and they're doing their best,
Yeah.
we can have a lot more respect for other people in what they do excel at and what they do well. And then we can also see that in ourselves and understand that we struggle, but everybody does, and that's okay. And we just need to keep pushing and use that stress for our good and find things that we can continue just to work through.
Yeah. And like finding that we need to make sure that we're not pushing ourselves down, like you said.
Yeah.
And it definitely goes both ways. We need to make sure that we're not pushing other people's down because we think we're better too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And just realizing that everyone has a chance.
Definitely. And I think the really believing in your heart that there's nobility in every person includes you and everyone around you. And you won't see anybody better or worse. You're all just part of the same team working together and doing the best in life and your goals and careers and whatever you're working towards.
Thank you so much to our mentors we were able to interview, and thank you to our listeners for joining in. If you can rate us 5 stars on iTunes, it helps us a ton. And if you have any questions, feel free to message us on Instagram at @theparadigmpod. You can also email us at podcast@paradigmhigh.org if you would like. Don't forget to keep engaging in the great conversation of ideas.
Hey, welcome back to the Paradigm Project.
We did eat Vegemite on toast for breakfast the whole lunch.
I was talking to my mom about comedians.